Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bill and Frank Eat Pop Culture. I am Frank, and with me, as always, Bill. How you doing, Bill?
I'm good, but I'm not alone.
No, you're not. Why aren't you alone, Bill?
Well, it's one of those special nights where we've invited our favorite pipe-smoking, boat-loving, bearded hillbilly, John Beaver, to join us. Because we have some things that John can provide a unique perspective on tonight that we want to talk about.
The first time that anybody from Haddonfield, New Jersey was called a hillbilly.
That's a good point.
That is very true. We're a very rare breed of country music loving hillbillies from Haddonfield. That's accurate.
Once again, Bill and Frank have fallen off the wagon. We skipped 1 week, 2 weeks. How many weeks did we skip?
Well, we put two episodes. We put 2 episodes out in 1 week, and then we skipped. We were supposed to record on,
which I thought was very kind.
I thought so too. People should feel very blessed. Hashtag blessed.
Mm-hmm.
But
hashtag blessed.
But then we were going to record Sunday, but kind of got away from us. You were at an all-day wrestling tournament with the L Dog, so we kind of put that on hold. And well, but you know, it only took us 3 days to reschedule. I don't feel too bad about it.
Yeah. So this is like a weird time of year, right? Like there's not a ton going on. I think we started this year off saying we were going to try to be more into wrestling. We were going to try to watch wrestling. And, here we are in post Rumble WrestleMania season. And there's just still not, in my opinion, a lot to talk about.
Although it has been a little better. Like Raw in particular has it. There's a couple things that we probably will get into next time we talk. But there's a couple things going on that I like. Anytime Edge is involved, like full time, I'm in on that storyline. I love it.
So has he been on? Has he been on since Randy beat the shit out of him?
No, he's been selling the injury. But
I think they had his wife. Didn't Beth Phoenix kind of like have to fill in for him as a sort of proxy because they only had him for so many days. I'll be honest, I marked out pretty hard when I watched the YouTube video of him coming out for the Rumble, and I haven't watched wrestling in a while, so it was pretty sweet.
Dude, I almost started crying.
And then last week, Frank, you should take a look at the Randy Orton segment because filling in for Edge last week was Broken Matt Hardy, which was his promo.
I saw that.
Fantastic. I thought it was fantastic.
What did you think of the whipping of Cody Rhodes?
I did not see it. I only read about it, so I'm reserving judgment until I can find time to watch it.
What do you think about it after reading it?
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things that reading it seemed pretty cool, but that's the kind of thing where I feel like you have to see it to really have an opinion. What did you feel?
I thought it was so different than anything we've seen on wrestling in 10 years.
Yeah, see, that's not the impression I got reading it, so I got to watch it.
I mean, he literally takes 10 lashes with a leather belt to his bare skin on live TV, and you can see the welts swelling.
It's like Jesus.
As the segment goes on.
It's like the passion of Cody.
It was, and he sold every one of them. And it was like, it got to the point where it was like, Jesus, are they really doing this? But I will say he has the worst friends in the world.
Yeah.
Because everybody was coming down, and instead of being like, hey man, that's enough. Like, you don't need to do this. This is ridiculous. Everybody came down, including his wife, and was like, come on, just 7 more. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I'll definitely have to go back and watch that.
It was shocking because wrestling has been so neutered for the last 10 to 15 years. Yeah. It was raw violence.
Makes the dog food angle on SmackDown look kind of ridiculous.
Yes. I mean, but it depends what you want your wrestling.
Right, exactly. Yep.
Some people are going to watch that and it's going to be a turnoff. Others are going to watch that and get an erection. I mean, I don't know. Anywho's, so no more wrestling talk this episode. We've got
we got a lot of big wrestling events coming up that I'm sure we'll talk about. Elimination Chamber, and then the final build into WrestleMania. So we'll save some of that for the next couple shows.
Yeah. Hey, before we get started with the main show, I've been listening to a lot of metal lately.
Okay.
Like Slayer, Megadeth.
It's a little outside of your wheelhouse, pal.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Metallica, of course, Anthrax, a lot of Motorhead, of course, Maiden.
I'm like picturing you in your office at work, like Christian Bale and The Big Short, like slamming your head to metal while everybody's staring at you through the window.
I actually do play it at work.
You're kind of doing it backwards.
So when someone, what's that?
You're supposed to be metal like early and then ease into, your
Meatloaf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what? So I had Sirius for free because I got a new car for like 6 months, and I came across the Ozzy's Boneyard channel, and it is like such a good channel, and it just got me. I heard a bunch of songs in there I hadn't heard in a while, and I'm like all in the metal now. So like Megadeth's touring next year, I want to go. Yeah. So anyway, metal. I love it.
While John and I are listening to country ballads.
It's funny, yeah. I mean, I was texting Bill about this the other day. I can't even listen to music in the car anymore. I get so angry, even listening to country. I have to like listen to podcasts only now because otherwise I just start screaming at people next to me when I'm waiting in the traffic in Jersey City. So I don't think I could handle metal in the car, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, even like Ozzy's new stuff is really good. Like legit, his 2 new songs that I've heard are legit good songs. He's coming to Hershey, so it's probably going to be his last tour. So I'm probably going to go. And Marilyn Manson's opening up.
How old is Ozzy? He's got to be what, 70?
I think he's 97 years old.
Wow, I mean, he's moving around pretty well then.
Yeah. No, I mean he's got to be 70.
I mean, I'm seriously like when I'm in the car with Jen, we listen to country because she's a huge country music fan. But when I'm in the car by myself, it's like, honestly, I'm at like 95% podcast. So I have 2 new podcasts, both of which I recommended to John, and I think he's listening to. I know he's listened to at least one of them, but I'm now obsessed with Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum, which is so good. And then Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard. I'm listening to both of them like almost exclusively.
See, what you should be doing is supporting indie podcasts instead of putting money into the pocket of already multi.
Rosenbaum's podcast is not. It is an indie podcast, and he's like not in the top 100 or anything. He's like sort of desperately trying to get listeners. Dax's, I'll give you. Dax's is like the most popular podcast in America right now. But yeah, they both do a really good job at like, of course, I like hearing actors come on and talk about like what shows they're on that were famous. That's, typical. But both of them do a really good job at getting their guests to sort of like, it's almost like you're sitting in on a therapy session. And with some of them that John and I have both listened to, especially with Rosenbaum, people really open up, and it's very interesting to listen.
It's really good. And the nice thing too is they're not super topical, so you can go back and listen to ones from 2018, and it's not about this is what I'm working on right now or something like that. It's so it's interesting that way because you can bounce around and just look for the guests you're interested in or the topics and things like that.
Yeah, listening to Rosenbaum, listening to both episodes he did with Tom Welling was fantastic.
All right, so this past Sunday was one of Bill and Johnny's favorite nights of the year, Oscar night. So we're going to kick off the show with that. Bill, Johnny, I'll see you on the other side. So let's start the show.
All right. So this past Sunday was quote unquote Hollywood's biggest night, the Oscars. We obviously are 3 big movie lovers on this podcast. John and I love the Oscars. Frank hates the Oscars. But we're going to talk about it anyway because, I don't know, we talk about movies so much on the show. It makes sense, even though a lot of the movies that were being honored or that were nominated for the Oscars aren't necessarily the ones we talk about a lot on this show. I still think it's worth talking about, not only because of who may have won or lost, but because it's a show that I've looked forward to pretty much every year of my life since I became conscious of it. Like I have vivid memories of watching the Oscars with my mom when I was young and begging to stay up and being told no. And this past Sunday, man, I'll tell you, like I didn't really have a lot of qualms with who won and who lost, but holy God, the ceremony itself is so out of touch and terrible. It's something I think we should.
Can I just interrupt for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to defend myself. So I don't. It's not that I hate the Oscars, or I should say, I haven't always. Let me rephrase. I haven't always hated the Oscars. What I hate is the constant politicking that has gone on at the Oscars for the last however many years. And what bothers me is it doesn't bother me so much when somebody like Brad Pitt says something or whatever, but when somebody gets up there like Meryl Streep, who has never done a fucking thing for anybody in her life, and starts politicking, it's like the one night of the year where she, spends a second of her time speaking out against something she may or may not believe in, probably not because she's full of shit. But it's like, and it's not about what your point of view is. Like, it doesn't matter whether, what you are, whether you're Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, whatever. It's just, it's either side of that coin using that stage to spout off bullshit when Michael Moore used to win Oscars. You knew he was going to get up there and be political. That's what Michael Moore does. That's his whole fucking life. But these people who don't 364 days a year don't lift a fucking finger for any cause, but then when they win an Oscar, they get up on stage and they have to take shots.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
it's disgusting. And then they go home to their multi-million-dollar mansions, and it's like, it makes it unenjoyable. It makes me bitter towards them. So that's why I just can't stand it anymore.
I agree with you, and honestly, it's reached sort of critical mass. There's nobody. I'm confident there's nobody on the planet that loves Brad Pitt as much as I do. And his speeches in the lead up to the Oscars, at the Golden Globes, at the SAGs, were fantastic. It was like a stand-up comedy routine. He made fun of himself. He talked about his Tinder profile. He talked about Quentin Tarantino's love of feet. Like, that's the kind of stuff that makes the show entertaining. When he went up,
yeah, right. So why at the Oscars does he feel the need to?
Because it's got the biggest audience, and the impeachment trial was the past week, and I wish he hadn't. I mean, it annoyed me, and I've been waiting for Brad Pitt to win a fucking Oscar for, since Seven came out. So I mean, I was so excited. He was the first award of the night. All I really wanted out of that ceremony was for Brad Pitt to fucking win, and then it annoyed me that he went up and did it. And it's got to the point now too where even the people so for instance, Leonardo DiCaprio, I love him. He's a great actor, and he legitimately dedicates most of his free time to climate change. Whether you're a climate change person or not, I feel like he's earned the right with what he does to speak on it whenever he wants.
Well, it doesn't matter whether or not
I still don't want to hear it. They've lost what the Oscars was supposed to be. Like, it's supposed to entertain people watching. It isn't a pulpit. So even when the people who I think have earned the right to talk about whatever issue they want to talk about get up there and do it, like DiCaprio, I get annoyed by it. And you're right. I mean, it's reached critical mass because almost everybody that won something last Sunday had some issue. Or if you're Joaquin Phoenix, literally has 46 issues that he tried to cram into his speech. So in that and the general terribleness of the way the show was put together, how out of touch with pop culture they seem, even though 5 or 6 years ago,
right?
Even though 5 or 6 years ago they made this big effort to be more inclusive, it feels like they've completely come off the rails. John, what do you think?
So, I mean, you guys hit on a lot of things here, and I came very prepared. I even wrote notes because I wanted to talk about a lot of the stuff you guys just mentioned, and I agree with you.
But your pipe fell on them
Yeah,
and burned all your notes.
that's exactly right. The dog ate my homework and all that stuff. You're totally accurate. So, I think you guys hit on a lot of it. This was the lowest rated Oscars of all time. It had a uptick last year, possibly because of the not having a host and people wanted to see if it would go off the rails. But I think also possibly because Black Panther was nominated for Best Picture.
I was just going to say the same thing.
While Bill and I both seem to agree, and Frank, you may agree as well, this was a pretty strong list of nominees this year. These are not movies that people are going to see. I'm just going to flat out say it. Like, what happened to the time when well-liked big budget pictures from studios also had a shot at winning the Academy Award? Expanding the field to 9 movies, 10 movies didn't help. In fact, it hurt, because now we have good movies that people go see and make a lot of money, and they don't even have a shot of winning anymore. It's going to be something that made $30 million that only people in Los Angeles and New York saw. And I just don't think the general audience that watches it, like they know that the movies that they like are not going to win. Even if they get nominated, they're just not going to win. And most of the time they don't get nominated. So
I don't even know who won. I know Brad Pitt won.
Well, but once upon
I didn't even know Joaquin won. I don't even know what won Best
Once
Picture.
Upon a Time in Hollywood and Joker, I feel like, John, are the exceptions this year. Like, Joker made over $1 billion worldwide. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood made, I think, somewhere around 150 million domestic. So, like, people saw those two movies, and I thought they would have had a chance at getting more viewers. But like you say, I feel like Joker never had a legitimate shot at winning Best Picture. Although, you know what? I'm a little surprised. I mean, because Phoenix was kind of a lock to win Best Actor, and Brad Pitt was kind of a lock to win. So, like, there were some popular choices.
I don't think Brad Pitt was a lock.
He won every single award. Like, he won literally everything. Every single.
Yeah, but Jim Carrey did too the year that he won.
Not as many. Not everyone. I mean, he won literally. Brad Pitt literally won the SAG, the Critics' Choice, the BAFTA, the Golden Globe. Like, he literally. I mean, it was a sweep.
I mean, I think
actually,
all 4
acting awards this year were all on lockdown. Like, there was no doubt who was going to win all 4 of them.
Which is, I mean, that's not great either. But they were. I mean, they were all pretty good performances. I did see all these movies. But I just want to go just really quickly. Here's a list of the movies that have won Best Picture since they expanded the field.
Okay.
The Hurt Locker, good movie, very little scene. Not from a major studio. The King's Speech, pretty good movie, Weinstein movie, a very typical Oscar winner. The Artist, which has to be up there with Crash, is one of the worst Best Picture winners of all time.
Yep.
Argo, came from a major studio, excellent movie, people went to see it. That one's probably pretty passable. 12 Years a Slave, another indie movie, very specific audience. Birdman, another indie movie. I love Michael Keaton, but very niche audience. Spotlight, super political. Moonlight, which is become this Oscar darling. This is the greatest movie ever, and I don't understand it at all. The Shape of Water, the weird movie where a girl has sex with the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh my God, so hot.
Green Book. It actually did come from a major studio. Everybody seemed pissed off that it won.
I was.
And now Parasite, which again was a very good movie that made $35 million. And people aren't seeing these movies. And I would say in these years, the only big budget movies that made a lot of money that had a chance of winning were probably Avatar, the year that Hurt Locker won, and Gravity, the year that 12 Years a Slave won.
And Once Upon a Time this year.
Yeah, but even Once Upon a Time, I mean, I think really it was probably more between 1917, which actually has made a lot of money, and Parasite, and Once Upon a Time was probably a distant third. I mean, what happened to Return of the King being able to win? Or, Gladiator,
I'm still mad Shakespeare in Love won.
Oh, me too. I mean, that was probably the beginning, honestly, of the quote unquote Oscar movie where it beats the one that people actually want to win. So
But to that point, Johnny, whatever happened to films being nominated that have lots of hardcore sex?
I really, really missed the days of what was like the Merchant Ivory movies, and they used to have a lot of sex in them. I can't remember.
Like Basic Instinct or
Fatal Attraction,
Monsters Ball, Fatal Attraction, just hardcore sex.
Well, actually, two of those, you're right on two. Basic Instinct did not get any Oscar nominations, but the other two did.
I thought Basic Instinct did.
No. It was sort of very close to porn.
Well, it shouldn't have gotten any nominations, but I don't know. I'm just saying there are times when what you want out of a movie is to be able to come to it. And I think that should be a consideration.
Maybe it's just the...
Go ahead, Johnny. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I mean, it's probably just the proliferation of online porn that, you don't need to go to the movie theater to...
That's a good point.
Paul Rubens can stay in his own home. He doesn't need to go to a theater to do that stuff anymore.
Just think, if we had, hold on. You bring up an amazing point here, Johnny. If internet pornography was as readily available 25 years ago, where would Paul Rubens be today? He'd probably be king of the world.
He'd still be Pee-wee.
I think he certainly wouldn't have had that.
I blame...
Yeah. That dead space in his career.
I blame the lack of free pornography readily available at your fingertips for his demise. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, back to what John was saying. I think you're right. And I think all the expansion that they did to be more inclusive of popular movies, all it really did was make it so they can give a token nomination to a big box office movie that has literally no chance of winning.
Right.
That's all Black Panther. Well, Black Panther had no chance of winning.
I mean, the snub to me is not that The Dark Knight wasn't nominated. Like, not only should have been nominated, it should have had a chance of winning. It was that good. And
especially that year.
And it doesn't make any sense that these movies, like, I just think the taste of the people in Hollywood, which I think is reflected, frankly, in what you were talking about, Frank, as far as the politics, is so different from the taste of the people that are watching it that there's such a huge, massive disconnect that, like, why would you want to see something where you just know that everybody that's going to get up and talk and the things that they're going to talk about that they like are just not the things that you like, right? When we have so many outlets on the internet, whatever, podcasts, YouTube videos, whatever, that you can watch that are going to talk about things that you like, right? I mean,
Yeah, but see, Johnny, I don't know that it's taste. Like, to me, it's not taste. To me, it's all it's all like self-masturbation, right? It's all pretentiousness. Oh, we're still Hollywood and we're artsy fartsy and we, it's all about the art and we're better than you because we saw these movies and you didn't. And, to me, it's all bullshit. I don't think, do you think Leonardo DiCaprio saw fucking Parasite?
Yeah, probably.
I did get the impression from that podcast.
Well, thank you. There goes my whole point.
You picked the wrong guy. He's like, he watches everything. So, like,
okay, fine. Do you think Martin Scorsese saw Parasite?
Probably not. But and Scorsese is the person. He's the perfect example, right? He's the one who takes a shit on. He took a shit on the movie that everybody on the planet went to see.
And I feel
like
Scorsese only watches Scorsese films.
I was actually going to bring up Endgame because I don't think there is I think it's a pretty thin line between what Avengers Endgame accomplished and what Return of the King accomplished, or what Titanic accomplished, or what Avatar accomplished, or Gladiator. And yet there was never a thought that Avengers Endgame was going to be nominated for Best Picture, right? And I don't, it's not that big a difference. In fact, I would go so far as to say Avengers Endgame is flat out a much better movie than Avatar, which had a shot of winning.
Oh, so, no shit.
Like, Avatar had a legitimate shot at winning, I feel like.
Yeah, I don't, like, that's, to me, is like, but I think something like Avengers Endgame in 2000, 2003 would have been nominated. So something has pivoted here.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, when or why it happened, but it's, and obviously there's other things going on here, right? I mean, people just don't watch live television anymore. That's the biggest reason why it's down. It's just people just don't watch things live anymore. But there's other stuff going on here, and I think that I agree, it's pretentious. I still remember that Clooney speech from like 10 years ago, where he basically like gave Hollywood credit for homosexuality being widely accepted and stuff like that, and it was offensive because it was just like, you guys didn't do this. It
Right.
felt like Barack Obama, like, you didn't build that. Like, no, Clooney, come on, you didn't do that. Come on, man.
I watched the Oscars because I'm a cinephile and I want to see who wins. Like, I'm interested in what wins film editing or sound mixing and stuff like that. So I watched the show. But I mean, I had a good portion of it on mute this past Sunday because I just got tired of hearing them suck each other off. Like, it's.
So what were you doing?
I was on my computer. I was on my computer, on my phone.
In silence?
No, I was like, I would watch something on my computer while the Oscars was on my TV.
Oh, I thought you were just sitting there in silence.
No, or honestly, a couple times I did, and I was just reading. So I mean, because it's like, I got tired. I get tired of every.
I mean, remember we used to get together for the Oscars. We used to have Oscar polls. Yeah. We used to sit and watch the entire show. Bill, I remember when we were in college, we used to tape it and like watch it the next day. Part of what made the Oscars so fun was there being a host and like the jokes and the skits and the songs, and they took all that away. So now it's just solely it's 4 hours of nothing but pretentiousness and being told why you're wrong and the people you're seeing on TV are better than you, how fucked up the world is, and everything in the world is shit and horrible except Hollywood. And it's like, no thanks. There's a million other things I'd rather do for 4 hours on a Sunday night.
Yeah, I think actually you hit on a big thing. I mean, I think the hostless experiment should be over. Like, there's no structure to it. There was no fun to it at all. Like, there was one or two presenters that tried to do something funny, but it was generally, it felt like, very somber. And all it did, it just felt, honestly, I don't give a shit where you fall on the political spectrum. This is not what this podcast is about, but like, all it was really a 4-hour anti-Trump rally, which is like, it's not something I really want to see at the Oscars. Well, like, there's a time and a place for everybody to do that kind of stuff. And the Oscars isn't it. It's not entertaining. Like, it's not something, it makes me sad because I used to love the Oscars.
I mean, even like there were, by my count, I think there were at least 13 musical numbers. And the only one I thought was even vaguely fun was Eminem.
Right.
And that was kind of like out of left field. And why
that came out of fucking nowhere.
So they basically replaced it like a host and jokes with 13 musical numbers, but none of them were like Robin Williams doing Blame Canada or something that's actually fun to watch. It was, it was Idina Menzel coming out and giving us a lesson on world inclusivity.
The Elsas,
right?
The Elsas of the world. Like, oh my God, are you fucking serious?
Or Janelle Monáe coming out and making a political thing. Yeah, I mean, it's just like even the musical numbers aren't fun, and they've tripled down on them to replace the host. I mean,
he just looks like he died 2 years ago, and somebody's puppeting him. But yeah, I mean, it was, I don't know what to say. Like, it was boring. It's weird because, like, I understand John's point about the Best Picture winner not being something that people saw. But I mean, Parasite was a fucking awesome movie. Like, and the dude, the guy who directed it, he did a great job. I would have given that to Sam Mendes because I thought 1917 was like, some of the stuff they did in that movie, I feel like was actually impossible. And I don't know how they did it. But I didn't really have a problem with a lot of the winners. Like, Joaquin Phoenix, obviously, I don't have a problem with. I mean, he was sensational. Although I honestly think Adam Driver had the harder part. But, and then, Renee Zellweger, that movie was super boring, but she was great. Parasite was great. Brad Pitt was great. The Laura Dern thing, I don't really understand why everybody jumped on that. She won every supporting actress award leading up to it too. And I thought she was good, but I thought other performances were better. I'm not sure why she got so much love for that one. But I mean,
actually my least favorite part of that movie, by the way.
Yeah, me too. It didn't, but it didn't really bother me. Like none of the awards bothered me. I love the Taika Waititi one screenplay. That was fantastic.
Yeah,
for Jojo awesome. Rabbit. Usually, like the things like I remember back in the good old days, the things that pissed me off about the Oscars were when the people I didn't like or the people that I wanted to win didn't win. And that's what it should be. Like you should go in rooting for your people and be happy if they win and sad if they lose. You shouldn't, but it shouldn't be a miserable experience to watch it. And that's
but I mean, I think partly here, right? We're talking about the experience of watching it, which I agree with you. I spent a large portion of the time, on my iPad, and it wasn't just during the commercial breaks, flipping around doing other stuff because I just wasn't interested. But at least we're watching it. Like most people just said, you know what? I'm looking at this and this is not something I'm interested in anymore. Even they weren't even starting it and then tuning out. They're just not interested anymore. And I think, there's a lot of, whether it's the movies that have been nominated over the last decade and the movies that have won over the last decade, I think it's also, frankly, the erosion of celebrity, that with the vanishingly few exceptions, there just aren't that many celebrities anymore that people really want to see. And they certainly don't want to hear them talk about politics when they do come out. But, like your Will Smiths and your Brad Pitts, they're just not that many, and we're not creating a lot of new ones anymore, right? Like, I don't think anyone's like dying to hear what Timothée Chalamet has to say. He's just not a big star. He's like a good actor, but
there's no Jack. There's no Jack anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think
well, I mean, isn't Brad Pitt Jack? Isn't Leo Jack?
Well, yes and no. Wait, yes and no, because
they're the last two real movie stars.
Yeah, but that's yes and no, because the era of the 70s and 80s when I would watch the Oscars, that would be like when you turned on the TV to watch the Oscars, that was your one chance. That was your chance to see Jack on TV, like outside of him playing a part. But now this is part of a larger conversation. Like the mystique of celebrity is gone. Like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, like all these people are on social media where we have so much more access to them than we ever did before. They're not shrouded in mystery anymore. Like I remember it was like people couldn't wait to see Jack Nicholson at the Oscars or, at the time, Meryl Streep or, back then, whoever, you can pick, you can go back as far as, Marlon Brando or whatever. But, where like outside of movies that they were in, you never saw them in their own life. Now you can fucking troll a celebrity and get them to yell at you on Twitter. Like it's a different world. Like I feel like part of the great thing about the Oscars back when I was a kid was like, it was the one night where you got to see all these people. Now it's not so special. Unless
that celebrity is Corey Graves, he would not respond to my trolling for 2 weeks.
I mean, is he really a celebrity? Are we going to call him a celebrity?
Well, all I'm saying is I dedicated myself to it for 2 weeks. Every time the guy tweeted something, I retweeted it and posted piece of shit. And I got nothing. He no-sold me.
Which, I mean, I feel like that is like earns grudging respect from you.
I was dedicated. I even set his account to alarm. So every time he tweeted, I got a alert and I would instantly retweet it and write piece of shit.
But you got to respect the no-sell.
Yeah, I do. But he's still a piece of shit. Sorry.
I mean, I don't know. I don't have all that much more to say. Like, I'll sit here and complain, but I'll probably watch it next year. Like, I'm always interested in who wins. Like, so I don't know, but I mean, hopefully next year they go back to a host. And, like 2 years ago when the whole Kevin Hart thing happened, I think that would have been, I was looking forward to seeing him take a crack at it.
Yeah. Take a fucking risk.
Yeah, exactly. They need to, yeah.
But I mean, I don't think anything's going to change, right? I mean, I think the problem is they're not learning anything from this. They're going to, everybody that's in this insular world is clapping themselves in the back right now. The Parasite won in 1917 lost. How a very good movie about World War I became a villain in this, and how Green Book became a villain last year. Like, and it's just these small group of people that are all clapping themselves in the back right now because the movie they wanted to win won. And the guys that they wanted to give political speeches gave political speeches, and they're all really happy right now. And apparently that's the only crowd they're targeting anymore. So it's going to be more of the same. And I did
Johnny, is 1917 that good?
It's outstanding.
It's outstanding.
Yeah, I mean,
and listen,
I asked Bill. I
don't care. It's my podcast. I'm on the podcast. My name is on the podcast. My name is on the fucking podcast. So I will talk when I choose to talk.
So it did win Best Cinematography, which is probably the most impressive thing of all about it. It was like Birdman on steroids as far as the sort of the one shot.
Here's the way that movie was made, okay? They didn't do the whole 2-hour movie in one shot, obviously, but it's made to look like it is. Like, there's no cuts. And some of the camera work and blocking of the act, like, from a technical standpoint, I went to see it with Jen, and we were in the theater, and she was like, I kept saying, like, how are they fucking doing this? How do they do that? And she was like, no one cares. But I was like sitting, I almost forgot the plot of the movie just because I was sitting there like in awe of the technical wizardry. Like, that was about the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Like John said, yeah, it's like he just tripled down on everything Cuarón did for Birdman. It was, I mean, I was like blown away by the technical ability of that movie.
Birdman's not Cuarón.
No, it's what the hell is that guy?
When I get him mixed up,
Inarritu.
That's right, the Revenant guy, right?
Yeah. But you know what it also was like?
Fucking racist, but yeah.
You know what also was like? Maybe this is a little more, Frank, down your alley. In the first season of Daredevil, I think it's like the third episode, and they have that.
Where he goes to
they have that 10-minute single shot fight scene. This is a 2-hour like fight scene / emotional roller coaster about soldiers in World War I. It's absolutely fantastic.
It's worth seeing the movie twice just to go back and try to figure out where he cut and made it look seamless.
Absolutely.
It is like, it was astounding. It was unbelievable.
And I'll be honest, like, as I actually enjoy Parasite. As far as directing, I didn't think there was anything in the direction of that movie that was anywhere near as impressive as 1917. It was like giving him Best Director was just like giving a second Best Picture award.
So the movie takes place in real time?
Basically, yeah. There's a point where somebody...
There's one hard cut in the whole movie.
Yeah, I'll refrain from saying any more than that because I was probably going to be too descriptive. But yeah, there's one point where you're definitely like, okay, there's a cut here or something. They changed something, but that's it. It's a fascinating movie to watch. It's a movie you'll want to watch, I think, at least twice, like Bill said, just to see kind of like, okay, first.
How long is the movie?
About a little under 2 hours.
So there's no they never like stop and go pee pee.
No, dude, it's like. I'm telling you, it's like literally one long shot.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, like, I guess the movie's short enough where, in reality, you could not pee for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I mean, it's so impressive, And honestly, it's not even like Bill's kind of saying. It's less the big shot from the trailer is him running down the field with the bombs going off. That's actually less impressive than there's points where they're just running through the middle of a trench.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's super possible. Narrow, and there's like soldiers on the side of them, and somehow this camera is going with them and not like bumping into people, and yet tracking all of this stuff and not having to cut it all, and it's just absolutely amazing.
It's impossible. I like some of it. I was like, this is impossible.
But Parasite won. Yeah,
and you know what? To even double down on John's point, like I would argue that Sam Mendes, Quentin Tarantino, and maybe Todd Phillips all did a better job directing.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Bong Joon-ho has done a better job directing in other movies that have action that he's done, because Parasite was pretty limited as far as the action sequences, which I think are much more difficult to film. So
yeah, I think sometimes the Academy people get a little like, I thought what was really impressive about Parasite actually was the editing. The editing was really good at ratcheting up the tension. I don't think it really had that much to do with the direction. I mean, I would have given it to...
I don't know. I don't know anything about the movie, so...
I mean, we're kind of shitting on it, like, and I understand why we're doing it, but it was a really good movie. I do though hate the narrative of like, oh, this was such a moment because a subtitled movie won Best Picture. Like, if that's the reason we voted for it, then that's really fucking stupid.
Well, but I mean, again, I think it also the fact that it's kind of about class warfare and social structure and things like that were of the moment that way too, as well, right?
Yeah,
so
I agree. Which is actually like, I accept that more than. But like all the narrative the next day was like, oh, it was such a big moment for, Hollywood acknowledging a foreign made blah, blah, blah. Like, it made me think that some of the people or a lot of the people voted for it just for that, which irritates me.
No, I'm 100% with you. And, I think
what year was Life is Beautiful?
99, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, but what was it up against?
I remember.
Was that Titanic? Was that the same year?
No, Titanic was 97.
Oh, you know what? That was the same year as Shakespeare in Love and Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Same year.
I remember. I mean, and it was up for Best Picture, and I don't think there was ever.
Yeah. But didn't it win it won like 2 or 3 Oscars that night? Didn't it?
He won Best Actor, which was like a huge.
And director, didn't he?
I
don't think so. I think it won Best Foreign Language Film and Best Actor.
I think he might have won Best Original or Adapted Screenplay too. Yeah, I think he had 2 Oscars. He had one, I think, for screenplay and one for.
Oh, here we go. I got
actor.
it. I'm on the Google box. The 71st Academy Awards, Benigni won Best Actor for the role. The film won 2 other Oscars for Best Music, Best Score, and Best Foreign Language Film.
I guess he was a producer. I don't know. Yeah, so he
was nominated for picture, director, and screenplay, but he didn't win any of those. Shakespeare in Love won Best Picture, which is probably the worst thing ever. No, Spielberg won Best Director.
Okay, so here's the other thing: the fact that Judi Dench was nominated for that movie is a crock of horse.
She was in it for 8 minutes.
Yeah, I guess you could make the argument that Brad Pitt wasn't really a supporting actor. If you want to go down that road too, though, I'm just happy Brad Pitt has an Oscar. So
yeah, me too.
He was totally a supporting actor, though. How could you say he's not?
He's on the screen for about as much as DiCaprio is what I think John's point.
Yes.
And then
I thought he was actually a co-lead, not a supporting actor.
And then when Tony Hopkins won the Best Actor Oscar for Silence of the Lambs, I mean, he's on screen in that movie for like 20 minutes. Not even. I think it's like 18 minutes.
Yeah, but wasn't Tom Cruise nominated for supporting actor for Magnolia?
Yeah. Yep. Tom Cruise never won an Oscar. That's upsetting.
And yet somehow not nominated for supporting actor for Rain Man, but whatever.
Yeah. Tom Cruise never won an Oscar, which upsets me, and he never will now because he's so controversial.
And so Tom Cruise, he just decided to lean into being Tom Cruise and make Tom Cruise movies, which is fine. I'm okay with that now, but. I mean, he's probably going to be Oscar worthy at Maverick. Let's be honest.
Yeah, the Roberto Benigni Best Actor year. That was the year that
Gwyneth Paltrow
and
won.
Jim Carrey got snubbed for The Truman Show, which I still think is the worst snub ever.
That was bad.
Snubbed, not even nominated.
Yeah, he won the best actor drama at the Golden Globes, and then did not
for Truman.
Yeah. And he actually won the Best Actor Drama at the Golden Globes 2 years in a row, back to back, and was not nominated
for Man on the Moon
for either one, for Truman Show and Man on the Moon.
I think he's going to get nominated as Dr. Robotnik for Sonic the Hedgehog,
which comes out this Friday, I think.
That's right.
Yeah, he's a shoo-in.
Okay, true believers, this is a little belated because we've had a lot of stuff to cover in our first couple shows of the year, and as we mentioned before, we've been a little lazy with how many times we've recorded. But DC TV recently presented its huge mega crossover, Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was spanned The Flash, Supergirl, Arrow, Legends of Tomorrow, and Batwoman. It's easily the largest superhero crossover ever on television. And, I think the crossovers up to this point there was the alien invasion one last year, have been kind of, they've been okay, have been great. This one, though, I'm not sure TV could do any better. Like, they really pulled out all the stops, got some actors to do cameos from all kinds of different DC properties. They really stressed the concept of the multiverse. It was super entertaining. Oliver Queen died not once but twice. We got some closure for Tom Welling's Clark Kent on Smallville. Brandon Routh got to redeem himself from Superman Returns and play that character again, which I thought was probably my favorite thing of the whole event. And for a while now, I've been wanting to talk about it. And now that we have John on the show tonight, I kind of wanted to get your guys' thoughts. How did you guys feel about this thing?
I responded very positively. I think my favorite crossover before this one was not last year's, but the Crisis on Earth X, the one where they had like the doppelgangers from the evil doppelgangers.
Yep.
Because that was the last one where they had the legends in it as well. And then last year the Elseworlds one, they did not include the legends. And this one was really, obviously, they as you alluded to, they threw everything, including the kitchen sink, at it, which was great. And I also thought they really leaned into the campiness, which frankly I think this called for. Yeah. I've bemoaned how the Flash, since somewhere around like the midway point of the second season, kind of abandoned this sort of Silver Age campiness that made it really fun, and this really leaned into it. Whether I think probably there's some filming reasons why they had to do it, and they couldn't get all the actors in all the same time and things like that, but it was just a lot of fun, and it felt like most of the actors are having fun, and certainly all the writers had a great deal of fun putting this together. And it was serious, but it wasn't like mega serious. You could tell that, from the ending, that this was kind of a lark too at the same time, which is great.
I mean, just the first episode of the event opened up with Robert Wool reprising his role as Alexander Knox from Tim Burton's '89 Batman. From that point on, I was like, this is going to be fantastic. Frank, what were your thoughts?
What my initial thoughts were, I love John Cryer's Lex Luthor.
I mean, if there's any actor in that thing that leaned into what John was just talking about, the campiness of the thing, it was John Cryer. Like, he was just chewing the scenery every time.
And at the same time, being the least physically threatening human being on the face of the earth. I must have turned to Mary several times throughout the crossover event and said, I fucking love John Cryer in this.
Yeah. He was good.
I popped for Kevin Conroy.
Yeah. That was great.
As the Kingdom Come Batman. I thought that was kind of cool. And then, of course, the thing that blew my fucking skirt up was Ezra Miller.
Yeah.
I don't know how they pulled that shit
That was
off.
amazing. That was amazing. Not only did they pull it off, but they kept it a complete surprise, which is borderline impossible in today's day and age.
Apparently, apparently it was at the request of the studio. They wanted Ezra Miller, and I guess to kind of, because they've taken so long to put together this Flash movie, I guess they wanted to keep him in the public eye and remind people that he existed. So it wasn't like they had to drag Warner Brothers together to do this. Warner Brothers wanted to do it. Now, neither of you mentioned my favorite part of the whole thing, which maybe is because it's so near and dear to my heart, which was the John Wesley ship, Flash 92, being the one who kind of does.
I was leaving it for you.
Does the whole, Crisis on Infinity Earth issue 6, Barry sacrificing himself, which was just, and even like having them flash back to him and Tina from the original series, and then playing the music, and man, it got a little misty in the Beaver household. I'm not going to lie. I was really, really happy. I mean, you talk about somebody who got a well-deserved sign-off for what I thought was a really underappreciated show. I was very happy about it. So,
I mean, that was a really cool moment.
I love the way you refer to the Beaver household as if it's not just you sitting on a couch in your underwear by yourself.
That's accurate. I mean, it's a little cold out, so I do have pajamas on over it. But yeah, that's true.
For me, the highlight for me was I've always thought that Brandon Routh got a raw deal. Like Bryan Singer's Superman was not good, but he was great, and I think he is a great Superman, and I'm glad he got a chance to sort of. I mean, there's rumors now that they want to bring him back to do a limited series type of thing, reprising that role in his separate Earth, which would be great. But even if he doesn't, like, it makes me happy that he was able to sort of put a positive spin on what was, I'm sure, something he looked back on like it was like he had unfinished business, which I thought was great.
And confirming that Bryan Singer is a fucking hack.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there are parts of that movie that there are flashes of really good stuff. Like, I really think the plane crash sequence when he reintroduces himself to the world in that movie still holds up. It's fantastic. But the movie itself is, I mean, that's a whole other topic. But I'm just glad it was cool to see him play the Kingdom Come Alex Ross style Superman. I really got a kick out of that. That, and I love seeing, even though it was brief, I loved seeing Tom Welling and Erica Durance sort of put a cap on their time as Clark and Lois as well.
I just love seeing Erica Durance again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Now, all that being said, okay, all that being said, I thought the following two arrows after the Crisis were a drizzly wet fart, and they did not hold my interest for 2 fucking minutes. You want to talk about doing everything but watching a show while you're watching a show? I have zero fucking interest in his daughter and the Canaries or whatever in 2040. I just don't fucking care. And I got to be honest, like, if they were going to kill him, if they were going to end Arrow, and they were going to kill Ollie in Crisis, then that should have been the end of Arrow. The fact that after 8 years they put on 2 episodes without Oliver to end the fucking series, to me, I questioned the move. I didn't like it at all. I thought they were bad, boring episodes, nothing but a fucking prologue for the new series that's coming out, and I thought it was a cheap marketing ploy to end a show that had an 8-year run.
What do you think, John?
I certainly, I didn't think the Green Arrow and the Canaries looked all that promising. I'm not saying I'm not going to at least check out the non-backdoor pilot when it starts next year, which it probably will. But the final episode, I mean, they brought a lot of people back, which was nice. And it, I guess they maybe earned that level of having like that kind of a denouement where they sort of sign off all these other characters, a lot of whom had spent as much time as Stephen Amell had on this show. And I certainly obviously like the nod to Diggle possibly being a Green Lantern. I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah, that was cool.
But overall, I don't know how they could have. Obviously, there's things behind the scenes, right? You negotiate with these actors. There's a certain level of availability, especially when you're filming a 5-episode crossover, and the leads have to be available for the majority of that. And Amell, I'm sure, had to probably, he had to be kind of wrangled into doing this 8th season in the first place. So, I'm sure he was pretty tight with his availability as well. I mean, I don't think necessarily those 2 episodes did him a service, but and I'm not even 100% sure that Crisis really did, that Arrow was the standout character in the Crisis episodes either, even though he was the one that sacrificed himself twice. His first sacrifice was much more effective than his second either. I'll put that out there. but I wouldn't say. I mean, obviously, Arrow has been really up and down.
Very.
The last couple of seasons. I don't think it's been super strong since probably season 5.
Yeah.
Was that it's been really up and down since then. So, and it probably should have gone off the air earlier than it did. But I didn't think the very last episode was bad. I certainly think that dropping that backdoor pilot in between was not great. They should have.
Yeah, I think if they were going to do the backdoor pilot, it should have been earlier in the season, not the second to last episode. I agree with Frank.
But wasn't the whole half of the season a backdoor pilot? I mean, half of the fucking season was that flash forward.
Yeah, I guess.
Why did we need a whole episode dedicated to it?
Because they want to give you the feel of what the show is going to be. Like, I agree with you that was a waste of time. I hated it. It did keep my interest. Like, I had it on in the background, but I didn't really pay attention to it that much. I do think the finale was like, I understand what you're saying, that, Amel was barely present for, or not present for the last 2 episodes, but I didn't mind the finale. I thought there was some cool nods. I liked what John said. I liked that they brought back a bunch of people. The show. So, and actually, if you read some of the things that have come out since Arrow ended, like, Amel did not have a good time doing the crossover. He was really angry at a lot of stuff. Scheduling, I guess.
Why?
Well, a lot of times they were trying to do these big emotional scenes, and he was either, the Supergirl people that he was acting with were at the end of like their 14-hour day, and he was just starting his, or a lot of times he was just acting with nobody because they couldn't get the schedules to work out. And he didn't think it was, put together well. He had a whole thing where he really went after. He said, like, the way the scheduling was, it was sort of disrespectful to the actors. Like, he really came out hard, sort of harder than he's been very not critical of anything for the whole run. So it was kind of surprising. We spoke about this a little bit in the intro, but Amel was on Michael Rosenbaum's podcast and literally had a panic attack and left and had to leave. And then he came back and finished his podcast 2 weeks later, and he had a panic attack. A lot of it had to do with how much stress the end of Arrow and Crisis brought on, I guess. I mean, so I don't think he was particularly like in love with that whole process. I think he's kind of glad to be done with it. I think he's grateful for it, obviously, but I think, like John said, I don't think he cared much that he wasn't really in the last 2 episodes. And I thought if they had limited access to him, then I thought the finale was okay. But like John said, the show overstayed its welcome. It should have gone off probably 2 years ago.
Yeah, I will say, he was very eloquent, honestly, in saying that this was by far the most important thing that's ever happened to him in his life until he met his wife and then until he had a baby. But, this is still the most important role he's ever had, and it changed his life forever. And he was good. But, he basically said, I did the 8th season for the money. I had a 7-year contract, and they brought me in for season 8, and it was straight up for the money. And he had a lot of difficulties filming these crossovers. I think it was pretty understandable. He was very forthright, too, about, he really understands this character a lot. And I'm sure he probably came right out and said, like, you're going to kill the guy off. You're going to kill the guy off. He's not coming back. I'm not going to, that was the way he wanted the character to end, I think. Yeah. So he was satisfied with that. And I don't think he would have wanted them to like resurrect him again for the finale. So there was only so many ways they could go there. I think Arrow is going to have a weird legacy in that it's probably going to be, I think the first couple of seasons are going to be looked on very fondly, and then it's going to be remembered more so for how many shows were generated out of it than it is for most of the content that they generated after season 2.
I think the best thing in the last 3 seasons was Kirk Acevedo.
Yeah, well, what John just said is Arrow's legacy. Like, not only did everything sort of spun out of Arrow, but like, look at it. Like, DC is now sort of doubling down on the TV universe. Like, we're getting Clark and Lois with Tyler Hoechlin and Bitsy Tulloch as Clark and Lois. We're getting a series from them. We're getting maybe a Brandon Routh limited series. We're getting Green Arrow and the Canaries. They did a Green Lantern tease. Like the CW is kind of the DC TV wing. Like there's more DC TV shows than there is other shows.
Like the only one of those I'd watch is the Brandon Routh series.
Well, that brings up another
Flash, and I'm going to keep watching Legends because I really enjoy them. But I gave up on Supergirl and I gave up on Batwoman after 2 episodes. Like I
was about to say, if the purpose of this crisis event is just to entertain, it did a great job. If the purpose of this crisis event was to get us to watch the shows that we weren't watching, it failed miserably. I still have zero interest in watching Batwoman. Supergirl has totally turned me off after last year for a lot of the same things we just talked about, the Oscars stuff, and frankly, Batwoman's the same reason. So it failed at that. I will give the Superman and Lois show a shot. I think Tyler Hoechlin's pretty good at Superman.
I think so too.
He's too short, but otherwise he's and Bitsy Tulloch is high. So I'll give it a shot.
Doesn't think so.
But
she looks like a skeleton with fucking a burlap sack stretched over its skull.
I don't think so. I mean, I was into her on Grimm, so I'm a fan.
Was she blonde in Grimm?
No, she was red in Grimm.
But we're also in this weird place where ratings don't matter anymore,
right?
Because like Batwoman's ratings are disastrous, and yet they already have re-upped it because what really matters is content generation for the new Warner Brothers app, and and buzz from the certain subset of Twitter that they want to buzz about something, being positive about Batwoman and what it represents. And Supergirl seems to fall in that same category. So, I guess this is a winning strategy for them. I'm sure they're looking at the books and saying like more of this stuff. So we're getting more.
It's interesting too. Like this is another conversation, but like the way TV is consumed now, is there a more outdated, archaic, more terrible system of ratings than the Nielsen? I mean, how can they possibly matter?
I feel like we've been saying this. For 15
But
years.
I mean, we have. And it was bad 10 years ago. It was bad like when Lost was on the air. And Lost was like the 20th or 21st rated show on television.
But it was the only thing people were talking about.
And NCIS was first. But then the next day at work, no one was fucking talking about what Agent Gibbs did. Everybody was talking about Lost. Like, no one can convince me that Lost wasn't watched by the most people in America when it was on. No one can convince me. And now, with streaming and all that stuff, nothing could be. I feel like it's laughable how inaccurate the Nielsen ratings have to be. A reckoning has to be coming with the rating system in this country. Like, they have to find something that makes more sense than this.
Well, I mean, the only thing is going to have, I mean, at the end of the day, the average.
But Bill, why? Do ratings even fucking
matter to
anymore?
Advertisers, and the advertisers at some point have to say, you know what, fuck you guys. No one's watching
is advertising even, besides during live sporting events, is advertising even fucking relevant anymore with DVRs and streaming and all this shit? I mean, if you watch the ESPN app, when it goes to commercial, you get a card screen.
Well, that's not everyone though. Like if you watch CBS All Access, you'll get ads, and that's what it's coming down to now. Now it's like,
yeah, but if you're watching CBS All Access, they know you're watching it because number one, you're subscribed and paying for it, and number two, they can monitor. They don't need the Nielsen ratings because they'll monitor what you're streaming.
Right.
What I'm saying is on television, over the air television. Who the fuck watches live television anymore if it's not a sporting event?
People do. Like it's people over 50.
Yeah, people over 50. So when they're gone, who's going to be watching it? So do we invest in a new system?
Over 50.
Yeah, but the new people over 50 are going to be into the next are going to be into the next level of technology. Why would you invest in a new system that when all the baby boomers die is going to be moot?
Because you got to figure out a way to judge what's popular. Like you have to. Like you're saying do nothing?
I'm saying network television is not popular.
I think the bigger question is like, do we, meaning the three of us and the general public, need to know this information? Because obviously Netflix has a very sophisticated algorithm to tell themselves what's popular and what's not. They just don't share it, right? So if they were going to move to the streaming thing, and because obviously they now do Live plus 3, Live plus 7, where they actually include the DVR. But if you're an advertiser, you're like, well, plus 3 doesn't mean shit to me because I know those people are fast forwarding through those ads. So at the end of the day, they are going to have to find a new outlet to advertise, which is pretty much going to be football and the Oscars. And when the Oscars are having the lowest ratings of all time, that doesn't look great for them either. But as far as Warner Brothers or Disney is concerned, well, I've got people paying for my app, so I don't necessarily need you anymore, advertisers, I guess would be their response. But the advertisers, I think, are going to be the ones that are just going to say, like, what's the point of even having broadcast networks anymore? We're not going to pay for this.
John, and Bill, that's all I was saying.
Yeah, so they'll figure out something different. That's when you're going to get more outright product placement, and you're going to get like the majority of the people that are members of CBS All Access or whatever. They're not like. There are some people that don't mind paying the extra $4 a month to get no commercials, but most people aren't. So that's where they're going to put their attention now.
I mean, my kids don't even watch TV anymore.
Yeah, neither does mine.
They don't watch. My kids are past Netflix and Hulu. My kids, all they fucking watch is YouTube.
Yeah. So does Francie. That's all she wants to watch is YouTube. She doesn't watch.
So that's my point. Is just all I'm saying is, and like us, like Bill, do you watch live TV if it's not sports?
Some stuff. I mean, but not a lot. No.
I don't watch anything live. I mean, I watch stuff that airs,
right,
but I watch it the next day. So if you're going to ask me about Arrow, you're probably have to ask me about it the day after it came out, not the day it came out, because I won't know.
Yeah, but that's because you're stealing it, John.
Also true. But even if I was, DVRing it, I would probably have to wait a little while. So,
yeah, and my only point though was like, there's still say you're right, Frank, and in 15 years there are no broadcast networks, which is a distinct possibility. I think even if the general public doesn't necessarily need to know, there's still going to have to be a way to measure what's doing well.
Like, yeah, and I think the only way to do it.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think the only way to do it is going to be through streaming, because then you can have an algorithm that is monitoring what is being watched for how many, just like they do with podcasts. I can log onto a website for free and it tells me how many people download our show, which is like 7 million. I could tell me how many people listen to it and for how long they listen to it for.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't think there's anything certain networks can do. Like there's certain channels that people still watch live, right? And what are they? The Hallmark Channel, watching all those stupid Hallmark movies, TLC, all those kinds of the shows. Nothing that you and I watch, which is fine. They'll still have advertising dollars on there. It's not millions and millions of people, but it's something.
You're talking about you're talking about my job, my network.
What do you mean?
That's exactly what my network is.
What?
What you just said. Hallmark, TLC.
That's not your network.
Our number one competitor is Hallmark. How is it not our network?
Yeah, you make family-friendly stuff, right? You make original content now, which I don't think you were doing before.
Okay,
right?
Fine. So whatever. So what I'm saying is, it's going to go. The answer's here. It's streaming. That's the way people are going to consume their television going forward. Once the baby boomers are gone, I think network television is literally on life support.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because a year and a half, 2 years. I mean, I'm in this world, so like I read about it all the time. And like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, network TV was on like literally on life support. And then in 2019, network television, at least by the metrics we use to measure it, made a little bit of a comeback. And I don't know whether that's just more old people watched and it's a fluke or not? We'll see this year.
I mean, it could be a dead cat bounce. It could be we just hit the bottom and it can't go any lower. I mean, I think obviously once Fox, the network, and Fox, the studio split because, it became much more profitable in the last 20 years for the studio to sell their content to their own station rather than selling it to another station. But now Fox doesn't have that. So that's why they bought SmackDown, and they have a lot of live things. They play football all the time and stuff like that. Because
live sporting.
They're not playing a lot of original written content anymore because it's just not.
And that's what I'm saying. Yeah. There is nothing that ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox can put on the air that's not already on the air. That's written, produced, original content that's going to draw any more viewers than their written, produced, original content on today has. It's just the audience is what it is.
Well, you're not going
to put out a new show and all of a sudden 40 million people are going to be watching Fox on a Tuesday night,
unless they put out something that you have to watch live.
But which is what I said. Yeah. Sports, wrestling. I mean, look at TNT. AEW's ratings have not been great, but it got extended for 3 years because TNT knows there's nothing else in the universe that's going to get them more viewers than AEW on Wednesday night gets them. It's probably the highest watched show on that network.
Well, the number one show in America is The Masked Singer.
Right.
Yeah. Which you have to watch
because people are stupid and mindless.
Well, you also have to watch it live. Otherwise it's ruined and there's no point.
Yeah, because Kim Jong is not as funny on DVR.
No, I'm saying the point of the show.
I'm sorry.
You're being.
But I mean, honestly, the networks now they're just content farms for the streaming now, right?
I watched The Masked Singer on DVR last week, and Nick Cannon was white.
That's
like Michael Jackson. That's weird.
Oh, whew. All right. That one got off the rails there a little bit, as we're wont to do. But once again, good discussions. I think always is when we have Johnny on. Would you agree, Bill?
Yes. I mean, it's not normal for a conversation about the DC TV universe to turn into a critique of America's TV watching atmosphere?
I mean, that's a tangent you're only going to get with Bill and Frank.
Yeah,
but it's fascinating stuff, though.
I was fascinated.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. It's the economics of it are fascinating to me. The business side, I think, is it can be as interesting as the content itself. So,
and as somebody that works on a linear television network, I'm hoping that it's not dead quite so soon.
So next week, Bill will mention even more that he works on a television network.
I'm just saying I'd like to still have a job. You're like,
I want you to have a job too.
No, you don't, because you're like, hey,
no, I do.
They're on life support.
Well, if you didn't have a job, you'd have more time for me.
They're on life support. Clear.
I didn't even, like, when I was saying that, I didn't even realize I was basically
firing me,
shitting on your livelihood.
Basically fired me.
Oh my God, I'm such a heel.
You really are.
All right. Well, Johnny, listen, man, good to have you on. Thanks for coming on. As always, it's always adds another dimension to the show, and we will. Go ahead.
No, man, it's my pleasure. I love being like the Heather Locklear in Melrose Place, always a special guest star. It's fun for me. So, yeah.
Always watching that credit scroll at the beginning to see if your name pops up.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah. All right, so with that, I'm going to close this one out. I'm sleepy, tired, and I'll talk to you next week, Bill. And if we still had shit to talk about, we can have Johnny back on again next week.
Yep.
That'd be great, man.
Because I'm sure I know Bill's drooling out of his ass to talk about Morbius. So,
well, I mean, it's weird because I hate Jared Leto so much, but
you're here.
The trailer for I mean, this is next week's discussion, but like, in spite of myself, now I want to see it.
Right. So with that, I'll say goodnight. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Johnny. And be well, everybody.
Fucking Jared Leto.
Culture.